In this video, I'm going to interview an accountant doing some incredible things. They completely transformed the way they price. They are now getting big fees, typically 5-figure fees for big projects from the way they've transformed their pricing. Let's go to that interview now. You're going to learn a ton of techniques, ideas for transforming your pricing too. So Reza, thank you so much for spending some time to share your stories. You're doing some incredible things, and I'm really looking forward to getting into those stories and finding out exactly what you've done, the results you've got, and sharing them with the audience. But actually first, just to give us a bit of context, could you tell us a little bit about your background, the size of firm, how long you've been in business, and so on?
Sure. Thanks, Mark, for the opportunity. I've now been the managing partner of Audio & Co down on the south coast near Southampton for just over 10 years now. I joined the firm in 2008, having trained and been a manager in PwC up in Birmingham, and the opportunity came along to buy into a small practice down on the south coast, which I grabbed with both hands and never looked back. So we are we're a small firm. We have 8 members of staff now, probably in the region of about 130 to 150 business clients.
Wow. Pretty impressive. Okay. And I think we were talking earlier about how long we've been working together, and I think when it was, I think it was 2015 that
that's right.
We started working. I was helping on the pricing. If we just go back kind of before then, what were some of from a pricing point of view, what were some of the challenges that you were facing, the difficulties?
I guess before I joined your mentoring program, before I came across kind of concepts of value pricing, I was pricing based on gut feel. A mixture of based on time, what you think you could get, which client was in front of me at that point in time. I had no organised system, as it were, of trying to price anything. And we would get some good results, but like I said, it was kind of a bit of a lottery as to whether we got a good result or not, or whether we were in front of the right client or not. And obviously once I joined your mentoring program, I found out a lot more about pricing and value pricing and the psychology of pricing. That changed drastically.
So tell me about what were some of the specific things that you then started to do since 2015?
Right, so obviously the concept of value pricing, and that once that kind of hit home, it instantly clicked with me, and I could kind of see how time-based charging was completely ludicrous. So we scrapped that idea completely, and then started to price much more based on value. So trying to find out what is the potential benefit to the client, what is the client benefiting in terms of money savings, tax savings, time savings, opportunity cost, and then trying to work out how to price our service accordingly based on value rather than based on time. So in terms of some specific examples, I mean, certainly it's made a massive impact in the way I price some of the advisory projects that we've carried out. So this might be kind of one-off tax assignments, R&D, or a tax planning project. And if I could share a couple of examples with you, back in I think 2016. So I've probably been a part of a group for about a year or so. All the principles I took on board. One of the most interesting and powerful ones was the concept of menu pricing. So giving different customers different prices, and coming up with a package of options for the customer that they can choose from, using the magic of 3. So I had an opportunity quite early on to price up an incorporation project. Not the normal incorporation, but an incorporation involving a property client. So it's quite typical these days, given the changes in the tax legislation for buy-to-let landlords and property owners. A lot more property owners are now moving towards holding property via a company, but where they've got properties in their own name, there's always an issue on how do we get that into a company. So typically one of the things we can do to try and smooth that process of transferring the property portfolio across is using tax incorporation. So I sat down with the client and kind of worked out what they wanted to do, what they wanted to achieve, and clearly there were huge tax implications for them of staying the way they were. So if they didn't do anything, then they'd be paying a lot more income tax every year because they'd get no mortgage tax interest relief. The 10% wear and tear allowances were disappearing. So their income tax bills would have gone up by about £80,000 to £100,000 a year. On top of that, they were looking to exit in a few years' time. So if they had exited, there would have been a huge capital gain that would arise. So I went away and I found out that through an incorporation they could save X million pounds. So based on that, I prepared a proposal using the concept of value pricing. Gave them 3 options, and with the top one having kind of a guarantee that we would defend any HMRC inquiry that may arise as a result of the planning. If the planning was unsuccessful, there was the fee guarantee built in. And the 3 options I presented, with the top option being at £66,000. And to my amazement, they accepted the top option. They wanted complete peace of mind. They didn't want to leave anything kind of hanging, no I's undotted or T's uncrossed, and they wanted us to handle everything and not have anything else to do with it. So they accepted the proposal, and they spread the 66,000 over 12 months, which was a great result, because if I had priced based on a time basis, it would have been a fraction of the amount that I was able to save based on doing on a value pricing concept. However, looking back, I was probably quite early on in my value pricing journey, and looking back, I probably still left money on the table even on that thing.
That's an amazing story, and I remember you telling me that at the time, and I thought, wow, this guy absolutely gets his value pricing, which is 66,000 is a pretty good result there. I know you also have some interesting processes for when you price the compliance stuff now. So perhaps you could just talk through a little bit some of the processes you go through to price compliance work. How do you build up the value? How do you have the conversation with the client? And if you've got a story, that would be great. And then perhaps we can dive into a couple more of those stories around some of the special work you've done, which I know you're a genius at now.
Right. Yeah, so it's a similar sort of thing. If we were going back to how I was doing things beforehand, not kind of using the concepts of value pricing. Again, it was based on gut feel or based on I think I can't believe I used to do this, but I think a lot of accountants do is that you ask for the previous year's accounts, you have a look at what the accountancy fee is in there, a previous accountant, and you think you pick a number which is around about what the previous accountant was charging, and then you do a proposal and you send it out, and sometimes you get them and sometimes you don't. So that was the old process of how I used to kind of pick a price. That completely changed when I came across cloud pricing. So now I have a software-based approach to come up with a price that is unique for the customer based on their particular wants and requirements. And the principles of price psychology state that you get a better result when you include the customer as part of the buying process. And that's certainly rung true of all the clients that I have been able to get much better prices for compliance services. So now we have cloud pricing. We use it to price up all of our bookkeeping services, our accounting services, our tax returns, our payroll. So all the normal, ordinary compliance services that we do day to day in the firm, we now use cloud pricing to price them up. And to give you some examples, it's not just kind of low fees that we get using this. I'd say that we have now introduced a minimum fee anyway, so now we have a minimum fee of £2,000, and within the software you can actually create a minimum figure that even if the numbers don't quite come up to that full 2,000 amount, it will always revert back to 2,000 as being your bottom option, so you always get that fee presented to the client. So the software is great and be able to manipulate and do things behind the scene to kind of get the result that you want in front of the client. But going in the other end of the spectrum, because of the ability to customize cloud pricing so effectively, I've been able to create separate modules. So about a year ago, I had an opportunity to price up quite a large business that was referred to me turning around £5 million. They already had their in-house finance team, but they wanted kind of a group financial controller type or virtual FD type service. which is not kind of run of the mill. It's still compliance orientated because we had to kind of review the quarterly management accounts, quarterly management meetings, do the year-end accounts. All that was all part and parcel of the package. And then so what I actually did was I created a separate module within cloud pricing and called it Group Management Reporting stroke FC Service. Came up with a list of questions that I went through with the client, and then came up with the components in terms of what would be included in each package. And the top option there was £34,000, which is the fee that they went with in total. So, I've managed to get fees through cloud pricing from sort of 2,000 up to 34,000 and everything in between. And the beauty about it is that, if you've got a client that does, where you're pricing up accounts and you're pricing up management services and payroll, you can do that all separately, or you can create one where you can do it all together. With the larger clients, I tend to do it separately because you can get a better result as a result of doing so. With the smaller ones, if it's just a consultant and, as far as they're concerned, they are the company, so it's just much easier to price the tax return and the company's accounts all in one. So I've created a separate module where you can do that. But what I love about cloud pricing is that it is so customizable, and you can kind of pick and choose how you do things to get the most optimal result.
There was something you said earlier which made me smile. You were talking about how the old way of doing things, that you would go and get a copy of the last set of accounts to see what the price. And it made me smile because that's exactly what I did when I started my accounting firm in the 1990s. And the crazy mistakes I would do in the first 2.5 years, I grew my practice incredibly fast. But my strategy was every client I got to meet, get a copy of the last set of accounts, flick to the back page, look for that line that says audit and accountancy fees, and then magically go back with a quote that was, in my case, it was usually 10% less. And what's crazy about it in hindsight is, and these things are so obvious, but most accountants don't know how to price. They're too cheap. So the worst people we can copy is the previous accountant. If we copy that fee, we're going to end up having a mess. And another thing I kind of suppose that the fact that you're having a conversation with somebody else, they're not happy with the existing accountant, they want something different, and if they want something different, they've got to pay a higher price. How has having a system and having minimum fees and so on impacted on the quality of the sorts of clients you get?
Massively. It's kind of it's helped us kind of change the mix of clients in the firm. It's a much higher quality of client, I would say. We've used cloud pricing over the last couple of years to reprice existing clients, and those that weren't really on board with our way of thinking of kind of wanting to work with people who valued our input in their business and wanting to help them grow, help them to maximize technology using cloud-based accounting, etc., to give meaning to the numbers and actually help them on a business journey rather than just be number crunchers. So those that haven't kind of come on board with our way of thinking have fallen by the wayside, which is fine, which is great, because it's given us the time and the capacity to give to the clients that do value our service and do want us on board as a quasi business partner to help them achieve their long-term objectives, their personal objectives, business objectives. We can dictate who we take on and who we don't. We have the luxury of being able to do that now, which perhaps we didn't before because we were shooting in the dark. Anyone could come in, we'd kind of accept. But thankfully, we can be a bit more picky now in terms of who we take on, which is a great position to be in.
What kind of prompted this conversation originally was you had some amazing successes recently, so which I'd love to kind of just delve into those a little bit more. Just kind of reinforcing the amazing things you're doing and some of the key processes you're going through. How you price one-off projects, the process you go through. So what else have you been up to lately?
I think you mentioned something some time back that. And I think you continuously mention it in your mentoring groups that the more you start to do it, you've got to start, and the more you start to do it, the more you get confident in doing so. And that certainly been my experience over the last few years from where I started and where I am now. I have a process and know exactly what it is that I need to do to get the best possible result with the client. So recently, just in the last 3 to 4 months alone, I've had the opportunity to price up a few one-off projects with existing and potential clients. And there was one that I priced up when I gave 3 options, and it turned out I had to introduce a 4th option, but I got a result of £25,000 for a one-off project in that case. And I was also able to use some other kind of tips and techniques of price psychology, like you don't offer a discount, but you can reduce the price if the customer does something for you in return. So what I always do for one-off projects now is to say that if you're willing to pay in advance, I can give you a 5% reduction off the price. So this particular customer, he was quite cash rich, and he was happy to pay me a check of £25,000 up front because he got a 5% discount, which was great. Whereas previously, without knowing that, I would never have done that. It would always have been based on spread over a period of time. That would just have been the norm. Recently, I had another success with a client that was referred to me for a just advisory piece. Again, using the system of coming up with a big benefit first, and also the way you communicate that and build the value and communicate the value is so important, and package up the value. So in terms of the two meeting approach, which I learned in a mentoring program about. The first meeting should be a fact find. You should then go away, prepare a proposal, get the client in a second time to then talk through the proposal and the price at that second meeting, which is exactly what I did in this case where this client was referred to me. And I had prepared 3 options, and I think that was the one where I sent it over to you, and we had a bit of a debate on what else we could include, and you suggested a fourth kind of no risk package option, which I then implemented, and in the meeting presented that to the client, and lo and behold, they went for that top option, which was a £33,000 fee in total. So these are some of the successes, and actually there's a really big one on the horizon which I don't want to elaborate on too much, but I've already had the discussion with the client. I've been through the price. It's a massive tax saving, and I've pitched my 3 options at 3, 4 and 5% of the tax saving, and the top option which they're leaning towards, and I think that they will go for, hopefully I'll find out in the next few weeks or so, will be my highest ever yet, and it will be a one-off assignment with fees of 6 figures. So yeah, fingers crossed that comes off.
Wow, well I'll definitely keep my fingers crossed for that as well, because that would be an amazing story. Yeah. And I remember that the previous one you were talking about, when obviously you came to me and asked my advice as to could we improve it, and originally it was you went with the magic of 3, as you mentioned earlier, the 3 options, and we looked at that and I thought, Reza's so good at this, he's ready for some advanced stuff. I shared the idea of having a 4th option, and so how, from your perspective, how do you felt? Did that work?
Absolutely, yeah, no, it did work. I think I probably could have stretched the 4th option a bit more. In terms of it's so powerful, this stuff. I mean, when you get it, you can actually, when you're having that discussion with the client, you can see that every client is different, and if we only had one price on the table, we are definitely leaving money on the table, which means that it doesn't allow us and give us the capacity to give the client and to give the value that we are able to give, because we're confined and shackled in by the free fees that we may have agreed on a time-based or kind of one price type approach. Whereas this way, they're still seeing that. I mean, I probably left money on the table. I probably could have gone a bit higher, but they're getting lots of value, because it's as far as the client's concerned, although it's ordinary tax planning, as far as they're concerned, they're going to save X million pounds, and they need someone that they can have that complete trust and peace of mind with, that they'll be able to deliver what they say they're going to deliver, and they're prepared to pay X amount because they know they're going to sell the business and get X million in the near future. And if we don't do what we need to do, then they would lose out. So it's kind of a no-brainer for the client. And in that meeting, when I presented the options, there was no comeback on the price. There was no, that's a bit too much, or can you do it for a bit less? They were quite happy. They saw the value instantly. Like I said, that's probably one of the signs that I did leave money on the table. But hey ho, you keep learning, and it is a journey. And they sign on the dotted line an authority to proceed to implementation.
Yeah, amazing. And that's why I love working with you so much, Reza, over the years, because you take on board the information, the ideas, you take action, you do it, but each time you're willing to keep pushing the boundaries, testing some new ideas, and also recognise that there's always more we can do, and clearly the stories and the results you're getting now, and from where you started to where you are now, I've seen huge change in the way in your confidence and the results you're getting. So thinking about kind of the big picture, so you're getting lots of kind of stories, and which is great, but kind of if you think back to prior to when we started working together, which was 2015, if you compare back then and now, what's been kind of the big change for you, the practice?
I'd say we've got, like I mentioned earlier, much better quality client base. Clients are a lot more enjoyable to work with at the level that we're working with them at now, because the focus is all on value. What is the value that we can provide, and because we're quoting and pricing based on value, we then need to then deliver that in terms of return on investment to the client. It's not just a case of we'll take your money, see you later. It's we've got to deliver, but it focuses our mind, it focuses the team on making sure the client is always getting value for our service, and we can demonstrate that in a number of ways. So that's one of the big things. So our actual numbers have probably shrunk, but profits have gone up. So our capacity, our kind of by fee earner, so total fees by fee earner has gone up. I'd say I'm able to kind of work kind of a lot less in terms of hours in the practice. Profits have gone up exponentially. So it's been great all round.
Wow, amazing! This guy's a genius. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
What an amazing story. If you want to get those sorts of results, below this video you'll find a link. Click on that and you can find out more information.